Welcome to Be the Person podcast. I have three special guests with us today. They are the founders of WellPlate. And before we jump into them personally, let me tell you what WellPlate is. It's a company that empowers sustainable emotional and physical health by breaking down common nutritional barriers. They help people with empathy, really giving foundational lifestyle habits. They understand a variety of struggles and they provide solutions and do so within a community. The three founders are Emily Brumley. She does all of the social media, photography, video, and capturing the heart behind WellPlate. We also have Chase Kinder. Chase is a registered dietitian. He gives all the nutritional and science behind WellPlate. And last, we have Steph Tinney. Steph is a registered counselor, and she provides the emotional piece of the why we do things on the emotional side, because we all know food isn't just what we should eat, it's also why do we eat what we do. I can't wait for you to hear from them today. Who's the person you're being? Are you satisfied? Welcome to Be the Person, a podcast for the brave and the curious, for people ready to explore their true potential. I'm your host, Annie Randall. Join me and let's get ready to go on this journey together. Welcome to Be the Person podcast. You are in for such a treat today. I have the three founders of WellPlate with us, and I'm really excited to tell you about this. So welcome, Emily, Steph, and Chase to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. Let's just jump right in and tell me, what is WellPlate?
Yeah, so WellPlate is a community and a resource that really deals with the struggles that we all face in today's culture of attaining personal health. And it's a place where we can really get stuck and confused with the advertisers and influencers.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Like, how did it come to be?
Yeah. So Emily was actually the one that approached me and Steph. And she just kind of saw this, this overlap between all of our passions and what we're all into. And once she approached me, I knew that, it's something that I personally had to follow through with, because I am very passionate about emotional eating, and on a daily basis, I see a lot of people struggle with this, just, get stuck in their head about these cyclical thoughts surrounding food. And so that's how I knew that I needed to, tag along in this project. So thanks, Emily.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
There's a lot of resources out there that deal with fitness and, diets and mental health. But putting the two of them together is not as popular. And I just kind of saw a hole in that and a need that wasn't, being addressed as much. Stephanie is a mental health counselor and Chase is a registered dietitian. And I both knew them really well. And I just thought that combination was really needed today.
Yeah. And for me, when Emily reached out to me about it, it felt very fitting and it aligned really well with what I do in my private practice. One of my specialties is working with individuals who struggle with eating disorders and disordered eating habits. And so the idea of really being able to educate people and give them resources and tools that can help them wrestle with that, that can offer them empathy and compassion. That was something that really stuck out to me as being one of my favorite things about WellPlate and the vision that Emily had for it.
Yeah. I love how you're bringing the mental health side together along with the science. Chase is a dietitian, correct, Chase?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So the science behind food and really putting them together. I think you're right. There's a big need for this because we sometimes deal with them in silos. And like you said, Chase, a lot of people deal with emotional eating. So this isn't something that we can do one thing at a time. we see them come together a lot, especially with the clientele that we all work with in Orange Theory and even outside of the studios.
Yep, absolutely. And I think one of the big things that we talk about a lot is how there's just so much information out there. Um, and some of it being misinformation, but with how much access people have to social media, it's important to understand what you're watching and just understanding what you're watching. So it, I think that's what we help with too, just helping people realize, the content that they're taking in and um, making sure it's quality content.
Well, and as Chase mentions that too, I mean, even what comes up for me is the idea that it's very individualized too. And so I think we love connecting with people on a relational basis too, and getting to know them and how some of these pieces fit for each person, because um, the reason one person struggles with emotional eating might not be the same for everybody else. And so making sure that we can individualize it too, I
Yeah.
think is one of our big passions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is individual just because on the food side, that's going to be unique to that person and the mental health side or, why people struggle or even what they're struggling with. So I love that you do that and make it personalized for each person.
Yeah.
If you guys had a magic wand and you could really help people with their relationship about food or with food, what would that look like to you?
So for me, I think one of the biggest things that comes up for me with that question is helping people to develop the ability to be more gracious and compassionate with themselves. Because, like anything we're trying to work on and create new habits around, there are going to be moments where we don't get it right and where we don't engage in the behaviors that we want to. And so, changing maybe some of our self critical talk and giving ourselves more grace and compassion is probably the thing that comes up for me the most.
Yeah. I think we're all very good at the grace and compassion part for sure. I think we're all definitely empathetic people. That brings us all together in a way. But I think if I had a little magic wand, my big thing would be to just remove the word bad from people's food choice or not food choices, but ways to describe food. I see it all the time and hear it all the time where people are describing certain foods as good and bad. Um, and just labeling a food as bad just gives it this power over that person, and then it can lead to this guilt deprivation cycle and just overall negative thoughts about food. So if I had a magic wand, I would just take the word bad as out as an adjective to describe food, because truly bad food is just food that is spoiled. It's food that is no longer edible, and it's food that doesn't work within your dietary guidelines, such as like an allergy. um, and maybe it's just food that doesn't taste good to you. But overall, just eliminating that word, I think, would help a lot of people mentally.
Yeah. Emily, what about you? If you had a magic wand, because you're really the visionary behind this, do you have something that you could see? Obviously, you saw a need for this with people and their relationship with food. What would that look like to you?
I would say that I want them to just kind of understand their, like, maybe pause and address what they might be deciding, based on their day or their season in life, the decisions that they're making in fitness or the food choices that they're making, like why they're making the food choices that they're making. Just taking the time to pause.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys, so much of that resonates with me from all three of you. Emily, I think you're right on just that we can get into a cycle and just like make decisions subconsciously and we don't even know. Like we've eaten a chocolate cake or, get out the ice cream or whatever it is. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I was doing that. And then Steph and Chase, this makes me laugh because we went to somebody's birthday party yesterday. And so there was cake and ice cream there last night. And normally I don't eat after dinner. That's kind of like my rule. And I just don't eat a lot of dairy. It doesn't agree with me. But you guys, this cake looked amazing. It was like, and I love cake. So, and they had ice cream. And I thought, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm breaking my own rule. And a few of them that one, I'm going to eat dairy and two, I'm eating after dinner. And instead of beating myself up though about, oh my gosh, Annie, why'd you have that piece of cake? And you shouldn't have had that dairy and ice cream is bad. Just if you're going to have it, enjoy it. And I think that's been a really significant change for me over the years because I could relate to everything you're saying of just one, food was bad, two, beating yourself up, three, making choices and then regretting them later. So I appreciate all of those. And I think they're fabulous. Magic wand wishes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Glad you have the cake.
No,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
it was good. The better thing is I enjoyed the cake and I didn't feel guilty afterwards. Like, sometimes you do when you just make that conscious decision, like, yeah, I'm going to have it. Um, I might not feel the best the next day because I never do with dairy, but I'm going to enjoy it and I'm not going to regret the decision.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's so huge too, because it's important to eat healthily and to move in a healthy way. And we can also still enjoy the things that we love at the same time. And so it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can eat well and still enjoy the things that we
Yeah.
love.
Exactly. Because I think so many times you said it about like we start something and then we're going to fail during this. And maybe not fail, maybe just, I don't even think that was a failure, but just make different decisions or go down a different road for a while. And that's okay. Like this isn't going to be a perfectly straight line with our food choices. Like today we're eating chicken, broccoli, and salad forever. It's going to
Right.
be, it changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people get caught up in that like perfection trap, that it sounds like you're talking about. It's can't always be perfect. And everyone's got a different idea of what perfect is, but I think we can get caught up in thinking that our food choices have to be like so regimented and quote unquote perfect to hit any kind of goals in, our fitness journey or our health journey in general. So yeah, perfection kills a lot of people, a lot of goals.
Element goals. Yeah. So one of our core values is sustainability. And we always want to prevent disease. Those are definitely boundaries that we have in WellPlate.
Sustainability.
Yeah.
very
Tell me
important.
more about sustainability. Does that mean like you want to always be able to continue this? Like, for example, I heard a podcast this morning and she was talking about intermittent fasting. And she just asked her clients, can you do it for life? And if the answer is yes, great, let's do it. And the answer is no, then maybe it isn't right for you. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, especially to what Chase was talking about with perfection. If we try to have chicken, rice, broccoli, salad, sweet potato for every meal all the time forever, we're depriving ourselves of things that we love and we enjoy, and that's not sustainable. It is not realistic to think that we are going to be able to maintain that for the rest of our lives. And so in incorporating foods that are healthy with foods that we love and enjoy, like cake, that is a much more sustainable approach that's going to help people to be successful, more successful over the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I've really noticed with myself and tell me if you guys are notice this as well. Like when I changed the why behind it, like I used to really have a terrible sweet tooth. Now you wouldn't think that was changed with my cake story, but it really has. um, I can, sometimes I will indulge, but I don't do it every day and it's not constantly on my mind. But my relationship with food has changed. My why. I think of it more as like it nourishes my body. I've changed from a lot of processed packaged food to more whole food because I know what it does inside my body. So just that mental change, I think, has been really important. Do you see that with other people as well?
Yeah, I think, ultimately understanding your big motivation, your big why behind doing anything,
Yeah.
but especially in your health journey, is only going to, lead you down the correct path, whatever that may be. Um, in my consultations with my clients, that's like one of the main things I focus on. I take a few minutes to really walk them through what is the motivating force behind doing any of this, and just relating it back to sustainability. If you don't have that why, you're not gonna ultimately find sustainable change because there's nothing that's really driving you to maintain that, and be consistent with it and whatnot. So, yeah, I think if that answers the question, yeah, I think the why is just very integral to.
And it's different depending on what season. And I think that's incredibly important to understand as life goes on. Your season in your 20s is going to be different than your 30s and 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I mean, you might be training for, a race or something like that, or you might have some, strength goals, or I don't know. Everyone has a different story. And, focusing on what that season is, where you're at is really important. And having that self awareness, I think, is the piece that's missing a lot. So, yeah. Did you want to speak to self awareness?
Well, I was just gonna say too, when I think of like our relationship with food, and a lot of this does tie in with self-awareness, the mental health side of things when it comes to emotional eating, I think that there can be a number of different reasons, like the why that you were talking about. I think there can be a number of different reasons why people turn to food to self-soothe. I think it can be because of habits that are modeled to us when we're growing up. Oftentimes it's parents or caregivers. Sometimes it's other people in our lives. Oftentimes when we have not been taught how to cope with hard emotions, we turn to food. I mean, how often, if somebody's having a bad day, do we go get them a really sugary coffee or a piece of cake? Or I remember one time, my best friend in college, she and her boyfriend had just broken up. And so we literally made a whole pan of no bake cookies, and we sat on the couch, and she started at one end and I started at the other, and we met in the middle. And so I think for a lot of people, it's a way that they cope with emotions when they don't have other skills to do so. Um, and so, yeah, I think one of the keys to what we do and what we hope to help guide people through is this journey of self-awareness, helping them understand, gosh, okay, the pause that Emily was talking about earlier. I'm going to stop and I'm going to pause and I'm going to notice what I want to do. Maybe I want to turn to a bag of chips. And why is that? What are the emotions that I'm feeling? What are the thoughts that are going through my mind? And is there a better way that I can cope with the thoughts and the emotions that I'm experiencing? And so even the why behind emotional eating can be different for everybody, right?
Yeah, I agree because I think so many times you're right. There's an underlying something. Either we didn't deal with it growing up, there's an emotion, whatever it is, it's underlying and it probably isn't directly related to food, but we can use food to numb that emotion so much. Um, yeah, all the time. I think we see that. And we all have our vices, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. I think you can find things to numb, and food is just one of the most popular.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like Steph was saying, it might not be inherently a bad thing. And just to tie it back to, this all being such an individual process, I think you really have to understand, why someone maybe feels like it's a bad thing that they're using food to cope, um, and ultimately just having that conversation, and really understanding what is the frequency in which they're doing this? When did they do this? Why did they do this? And really just seeing this person as, the sum of their whole life experiences. I think it's just so important to understand a person on that level. And, one size doesn't fit all. Like everyone is just so unique and different. But at the end of the day, just, I think that's what we are good at, like just understanding people, and understanding the struggles that most people go through, and just helping them realize that it's normal and you're not alone, in emotional eating. Like we all do it, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but it can lead to, certain diseases if it's not controlled. Um, and so that's where we kind of step in to help.
Yeah. Because we're more than, the size of our clothes. We're more than the food choices that we make. We're there's a lot more to life than your fitness goals. And health is a foundational part of life, and it affects every area of your life. And that's extremely important. Does that mean that at every season in your life that you are in the best condition of your entire life, every single year of your life? I don't think that that is sustainable. I think that there is some wiggle room, not, anything that's going to cause disease or be detrimental to you or your family. But I think putting an enormous amount of pressure on yourself to have this perfect image can be one side of something that we deal with. But it's so broad. I mean, there's just so many different areas. It's hard to put WellPlate into a box.
Have you been confused about what to eat, when to eat, and overall the best things to do for your health? I've created a free guide for optimal health just for you. It'll help you live healthier, make more confident choices, and know exactly which choices you should make on food, timing of your food, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss this guide. The link to get the free guide is in the show notes. I love that you step in, though, that it's not, that you guys can step in and deal with individual people, because we all have a story. We all have struggles with food, and just work with people where they're at. I think that is so powerful on just one, Chase, you teaching them what to eat. And then Steph, you really helping them understand the why and the mental aspects. And Emily, you just capture it all so well and put it out on social media, because there's a million messages I think people are hearing out there. And I think they need to know the truth. And what you just said is you're not alone. Everybody struggles with this. It's just, where is your struggle and how bad is it? I think.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Because we all have those voices in our head. We all, I think, talk to ourselves. And for many years, mine was so, so hard on myself. And honestly, I just didn't even realize it. And Steph, you were the one that really helped me with this. And I don't even think at the time I told you this, but you used to coach Orange Theory. And when you were coaching, you were saying on the treadmill, I just remember it, of, hey, if you're not saying it to the person next to you, stop saying it to yourself. And at that minute, it just clicked for me, because I was yelling at myself for not running fast enough, not getting up earlier. I mean, there's seriously probably 12 things in that 1 minute that I was yelling at myself for. And I was like, dang, you know what? I really do have to change this voice in my head. Why would anybody want to be my friend if I talk to him like this, or work for us? And it was like, you know what? If you wouldn't do it to somebody else, don't do it to you. And I think in this process of change, it was really impactful for me to notice.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate hearing that. I think that is something my clients hate when I ask that question. Like they'll come into session and we'll be talking about something and they'll be self-critical or making judgments about maybe choices or behaviors that they've made. And I'll pause and I'll ask them, like, would you say this to your sister? Would you say this to your best friend? And they hate when I ask them that question because 10 times out of 10, the answer is no. Because you're right. If we talked to other people the way that oftentimes we talk to ourselves, people wouldn't want to be our friends. And I think that's one of the things that can keep us stuck in this cycle of emotional eating is that, Chase was talking earlier about the guilt deprivation cycle and the shame that we can create for ourselves. And we try to deprive ourselves of the things that we love, and then we can't do it anymore. And so we cave and we eat it. And then we beat ourselves up about it. And then we feel all of this shame. So we choose to deprive ourselves of the things that we love again. And then we break and we can't do it anymore. And it's just this big cycle that we find ourselves in when oftentimes, it's creating this self-awareness of that cycle and what's happening, and then inserting compassion that I think is one of the things that can really make such a huge difference for all of us.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to build off that, like to question, why we have these thoughts about foods. When in reality, what if we just like, I love Reese's peanut butter cups. And, what if I just ate those, enjoyed it like I always do, and then just moved on? But I know a lot of people that, when they eat a peanut butter cup or something like that, they feel guilty. They feel shameful because of the things that they've been told, that they're quote unquote bad, or that this isn't the best thing you could eat, or it's not nutrient dense, whatever is guilt floating around in their head. I think it's just really, really important to understand, take a step back, understand where they got these ideas of these foods, and, put a halt to it and educate them, and that, this is a food that is ultimately satisfying for you, whether it's mentally, or physically. I mean, they're both so important, right? So you can eat foods just because they're mentally satisfying. There's nothing wrong with that. And I just think that's a concept that not a lot of people think about and understand. Like, I've talked with people who are like, "Whoa, you're saying I can eat foods just because like I like them? I can do that. Like, that's okay." And it's like, yes, you can. Like, if you eat a bite of food and you enjoy it, like, just savor that moment and don't beat yourself up for it. And so many people go down that path of, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." And then, like you were saying, Seth, they just start to beat themselves up. They feel guilty. They feel shameful. Then they start to restrict. And then, kind of like the forbidden fruit effect, you restrict that food that you like so much. And then you're ultimately going to crave it again and want it back. And then the cycle just restarts. So it's just, yeah, that's just such a really important concept for people to understand. Just, enjoy the food.
Yeah.
I would say just pausing. We call it the toddler effect here of asking why constantly. When you're, just kind of feeling stuck or feeling, stuck in shame, or not understanding why you're getting to the goals that you have, maybe asking why you have the goals that you have. Why you're craving the things that you're craving. I mean, just being so curious about yourself and your journey consistently, just all the time, just like an annoying toddler, why, but why? And then just kind of keep going back, keep going backwards with that, until you reach sometimes the hard things, the hard truths of, why some of your behaviors or why some of your goals are the goals that they are. And that can be tricky, and it can be really hard to do alone. And I think that's the heart of the community that we're trying to build and the resources that we're trying to make.
Yeah. I'm going to remember that, the toddler effect. Because I'm a why question asker. So I
Yes.
love that. So good. I think too that shame isn't a great motivator. Like it'll work for a minute and then it doesn't work. So I think when we're in that shame cycle of just how do we pull ourselves out of that and asking the question why can be so impactful. So I appreciate you guys sharing that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I'm a super tactical person. Like want you to tell me the A, B's, and C's. So if you're someone that's listening and you realize, wow, like I don't have a healthy relationship with food. I have seen myself in what they're talking about. What would you tell that person? Like, what are one or two steps that they could take today and make some changes? And knowing that you're probably each going to give a couple different examples, knowing, hey, we don't have to take the 6 things they're going to tell us. Choose one, maybe two at the very, very most, and start there. But would you guys share some things tactically?
Yeah, absolutely. I find myself in the work environment that I'm in, getting asked nutrition questions, and I just kind of have to, come up with something kind of real quick. And when I sense that someone might have, a tough relationship with food, and they're talking to me, and I'm like, okay, okay, okay. One of the main things that I can tell them and recommend to them is, you know, be self-aware, like Steph has mentioned a couple times now. But that could look like journaling. Anytime that you're feeling maybe conflicted or confused about a certain emotion that you're feeling surrounding food, just write it down. I mean, journaling is such a powerful tool that not a lot of us utilize enough. And I just know anytime that I journal and actually just get my thoughts from here down onto paper, it makes it so much more uh, easily process. I can process it so much more easily than if I just constantly, think about it in my head. So I would say journaling is really, really important, so you can get the thoughts out. And then my second thing would be, from what I said earlier, just stop labeling foods as good and bad. I think that I'm just going to keep pushing that. I constantly push that with people because I hear it all the time still. And instead of labeling a food as good or bad, you can just label the food as what it is, or how it makes you feel. And that would help dramatically a lot of people.
Love those.
I think the two things that come up for me, the first is an acronym that I shared with Emily and Chase the other day when we were meeting, and it's the acronym STOP. And it stands for stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. So that idea of helping people to build self-awareness, maybe when you notice that you're turning to food to soothe your emotions, stop, take a step back, observe, notice what you're thinking, notice how you're feeling. That would be a great time to do some journaling that Chase was mentioning. And then the proceed mindfully is you being able to recognize that you can be in control of your choices and you can proceed in the way that fits best for you. Maybe that is having a cookie. Maybe it's choosing a different coping skill, like going for a walk or sitting down and reading or doing some deep breathing. So the acronym STOP would probably be the first tactical skill that I would suggest. And then the second thing kind of goes back to what we were just talking to with self-talk. Really working on changing your self-talk and almost like taking a self-thought log where you're writing some of your thoughts throughout the day to help yourself become aware of what your internal dialogue is like. But then asking that best friend question, like, okay, if this were Lisa, and she was saying to me that she had all of these thoughts going on in her mind, what would I tell Lisa? And then taking that and saying it to myself. So those would probably be the two skills that I would suggest.
Okay. So good.
Yeah. I don't have a lot more to add to that because I'm honestly, really just taking inventory. I would say though, right, it's really hard to do alone. And I think that it can be really helpful and a great use of your time to have some some tools on how to make that happen. And I think that that's what we're focusing a lot on in the community and the resources and the workshops that we've got coming up, is that we want to, build a space where this kind of work can happen and then can just become more of a lifestyle habit. Changing some language that maybe has been ingrained, and just having just self-awareness for your personal season. It's just not a one size fits all, and building some activities that help foster that process.
Yeah. I just appreciate that so much. It's honestly, when we started Orange Theory, it's what I wanted to do for people in fitness, of give them a safe space to be able to work out where they're at. Because we have people that are just beginning all the way up to elite athletes, and everybody in there can do it. They can feel successful. They can feel safe. They're there for a different reason. They're on a different path and season in life. But bringing them together, because you're so right, change happens in a community. And to my knowledge, there really isn't a community like this. And so in Colorado Springs, I'm super excited for you guys to bring this. Tell me a little bit about what does that look like? When will it start? So if people are interested, they can connect up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our goal was to really provide a series of workshops at the beginning of the year. And we have some really amazing things planned. But then we kind of thought, you know what? The holidays are coming up.
Yeah.
And that can be a really, really tricky time. And we just felt inspired to just do a little extra one before our big series starts in January, to do one that really reaches people in the middle of the holiday season. And that would be on December 12th. In the evening. It's a Thursday. It's from 6 to 8. We're going to do a really fun hands-on workshop where we can, kind of just like a little bit kick off, before the big kickoffs in January, where we have so many topics planned that just really reach into all of the nooks and crannies and all the corners that we deal with in this space.
I think that'll be so powerful because you're right. There's a lot that goes with food and the holidays. So I'm glad you're giving an option there. And then also beginning of the new year, because that's when a lot of people pick up or kick off the New Year's resolutions. A lot of them have to do with weight and health and all the things, of just coming alongside them to help them be successful on this side of it, because it's so important. You can do all the right workouts and you can know exactly what to eat. But when your mind gets in the way, man, that can cause a big mismatch there. So I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Annie.
So I will make sure I link to all of that in the show notes so people can get in touch with you and connect with WellPlate. They know exactly when those seminars are, how to register, all of the things. So thank you guys for the work that you're doing, for being on today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time, man.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, if this resonates with you or somebody that you know, please share it with them so we can get the word out about WellPlate. It really is just starting. I think there is such a big need for this, so please share it out in our community. And then always, it would mean the world to me if you would give the show a 5-star review so we can reach more people. Thanks for tuning in today.